What does freedom mean to you? Does it mean the freedom to choose? The freedom to have a family and raise your kids according to your own values? What about living a wild, adventurous life, experimenting with music, relationships, or art? What does freedom really mean? What if freedom meant something that only a few Americans still understood? What if it meant that your choices and your values were set by you, rather than by some politician in a far-off capital? Some people think we're only free to choose to live exactly how they live, by their moral code, or their narrow worldviews. But if liberty means anything, it means that you, and you alone, have the power to exercise your rights to which the laws of nature and nature's God granted you. It's time to put these principles back into action. It's time to restore the American dream, activate in our communities, and take our country back. It's time to wake up, America. Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Good morning, good morning. Thanks so much for tuning into the show today. Happy Wednesday. We're glad to have you here, and I've cooked up an awesome show for you. State of Disunion. Last night, Joe Biden gave his State of the Union address to the nation, and there were quite a few disgusting moments during the speech. If you didn't watch it, I'll give you the absolute grossest moment that happened last night. And no, I am not talking about that moment that everybody shared last night in the meme that showed Joe Biden's wife making out with Kamala Harris's husband. It was actually, there was a grosser moment than that. Although I will show you that photo, and we'll talk about that at the top of the show today. At 7:18 this morning, debris from the Chinese spy balloon has been released. Photographs were released yesterday of that spy balloon, which made its way into American airspace last week and stunned the world and became a meme. We'll show you the photographs of that, and I'll be talking about the implications, foreign policy implications of that at 7:20 this morning. At 7:35 this morning, Missouri Senator Mike Moon will be joining us in studio. We haven't seen him in a while. State Senator Mike Moon has introduced Missouri's version of Florida's, well, should I call it a don't say gay bill? Because it's really not about not saying gay. It's just, I gotta say, don't say gay. It's quite a catchy name. Don't say it. Don't say it. Don't say gay. It's not about not saying gay. It's about making sure that weird pervos aren't talking to your 5-year-old kids in kindergarten class about their sexuality and stuff like that. You know, normal, a law that requires teachers to not be perverts and criminals and disgusting weirdos. Yeah, we'll talk to Senator Mike Moon about that at 7:30 this morning. He'll be in studio, and we'll get his take on it. Hopefully he'll be wearing overalls. Remember, he was the guy that got in trouble for showing up on the Senate floor last year wearing overalls in the Missouri State Senate. It'll be a good time. He'll be joining us in studio. At 7:51 this morning, a mother regrets socially transitioning her 4-year-old son to be a girl. She said it was like leaving a cult. We'll talk about that at 7:51. And at 8 o'clock this morning, Judge Napolitano is going to join us today. I'll ask him what his thoughts are on that balloon that flew into American airspace, what he would have done if he was president of the United States. And then I also want to ask him about that story on the federal judge who said that the ban on owning guns and using marijuana is unconstitutional. I'm sure he'll agree with that, but it'll be interesting in light of Missouri's recent passage of legalization of recreational cannabis. And of course, that went into effect last weekend. And boy, oh boy, not just marijuana green, but cash green, cash money. They said it was millions and millions of dollars, something like $12 million was made in the very first weekend that Missouri legalized recreational cannabis. We'll talk about that with Judge Napolitano, as well as the possibility of there being a change to the application form for a federal background check. And what the possibility of that is. My guess is that it's not likely under the Biden administration. However, it'll be interesting to see if Supreme Court possibly takes up this case, whether or not the question of if you are a marijuana user, will you legally be able to purchase a firearm? How can we have laws that are in conflict in such a way, whereas to say, on one side of things, yeah, it's legal in your state for you to do this, but you can't have a gun, you can't purchase a gun and go through the federal background check. Thank God we have a judge coming on the show today at 8 a.m. He's going to give us a little bit of update on that one. And that'll be a great interview, as usual. They almost always are. At 8:35 this morning, Leonardo DiCaprio, yes, we're going to wade into the cultural issues today. Leonardo DiCaprio is dating a 19-year-old girl. I say girl, but you know what I should say? Leonardo DiCaprio is dating a fully grown adult 19-year-old woman. Congratulations, Leonardo. I believe I heard he was 48 years old, and I just have to say that all of the outrage that spewed online. Yesterday, I contacted my friend Kristen Thomas. She's a and life coach, certified sex and life coach. You can get a certificate in that. Imagine what the exams must be like. But she wasn't going to be able to come on the show today, unfortunately. But she thought it was disgusting. She says it's borderline predatory, and I'm just, you know what? I'm kind of sad that she couldn't come on here today because I was really looking forward to arguing about it and saying why I think it's cool and good and okay and nice. Congratulations, Leonardo. And I'll explain to you today why I think fully grown adult women should be treated like fully grown adult women. Stop infantilizing fully grown adults. Yeah, she's old enough to go to war. She can go to Leo DiCaprio's bedroom. All right, that's enough, Austin. It's too early in the show to start getting demonetized. Let's talk about the state of disunion. The most disgusting moment in the speech last night was not the speech. It was actually the Republican Party's response. But before I get to that, before I play the clip of the absolute most disgusting moment, I will, of course, show you this absolute disgusting moment, the West Swing. Yeah, that is Joe Biden's wife. The funny thing is that everybody has seen photographs of Joe Biden where he is kissing his own wife, but he doesn't kiss her like that, baby. He doesn't kiss her like that at all. When Joe Biden kisses his wife, he kisses her with a mask on. And, well, there was no mask kiss between Jill Biden and Kamala Harris's. I almost called him his wife. But when you're the vice president, if you have a husband, is he really a husband? He's more like a wife. Okay, fine. That's enough. Austin, stop being a sexist, misogynist pig. Wait until 8:30 when we talk about Leonardo DiCaprio, and then I can be a sexist, misogynist pig. Yeah, that was actually not the most disgusting moment. But can I ask you a question? And I'm really curious. You can answer this with a text 573-319-1586. If you were a married woman, would you kiss your male friends like that? Because let me tell you something. If I was the president of the United States and I saw a man pucker up and put his lips on there, I don't give it. If it is a State of the Union, I'm gonna go down there and beat his ass. Okay, I would tell you something. My wife isn't gonna be kissing anybody on the lips right there. I don't care who is your friends or acquaintances and all this stuff. I mean, this ought to tell you what the kind of weird swinging stuff that the elites do get up to these days. I'll tell you. But here in Missouri, any man puts his lips on another man's wife. I don't care if you are the president's wife. I don't care if you are the vice president's husband, you're going to get a beat down. Okay. And I do know karate, so it would happen. And that guy, I'm sure, is a bit of chubby, tubby piece of, you know what? Stephanie, my wife over there in the live stream says I would never kiss another man. Damn straight you wouldn't. It's not even a question. Except for George and Calvin, she says, our lovely dogs. Oh, isn't that nice? So very cute. All right, let's look at the most disgusting moment of the State of the Union last night. It didn't actually come from Joe Biden. It came from the Republicans, who, of course, are and continue to be a massive disappointment and pain in the collective ass of limited government lovers everywhere. Let's take a listen and watch.
Some Republicans want Medicare and Social Security to sunset. I'm not saying it's a majority. Let me give you, anybody who doubts it, contact my office. I'll give you a copy. I'll give you a copy of the proposal. That means Congress doesn't vote. Well, I'm glad to see you. No, I tell you, I enjoy conversion. You know, it means if Congress doesn't keep the programs the way they are, they'd go away. Other Republicans say, I'm not saying it's a majority of you. I don't even think it's even a significant, but it's being proposed by individuals.
Yes.
I'm not politely not naming them, but it's being proposed by some of you.
Yeah. Yeah, it is being proposed. We're talking about, he says, sunsetting Social Security and Medicare. And the Republicans are freaking out on him because there was a Republican who actually suggested that we might want to try a limited government approach. And the Republicans are booing him. They're not booing him because Joe Biden is accusing them of advocating for big government, and they're not. No, we believe in limited government liberty. That's not what they're saying. They're saying, no, we want to continue to take the prime years of the youth of our society and put them into the burner. Well, what the United States is today is Soylent Green, but in reverse. Instead of taking old people and when they're dying and putting them off in the burner and then turning them into little crackers and then feeding them to the young. It's actually the opposite. The United States today takes our young, chops them up, all of their productive years and all of their cash, and chops them into little crackers and feeds them to the geriatrics at the old folks home. And that program is called Medicare. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene decided in her, I don't know, her faux fur to go out and make a statement after she said to take credit for booing Joe Biden at that moment. Let's hear what Marjorie Taylor Greene had to say.
To my office after listening to the State of the Union with Joe Biden, and part of the time we couldn't really understand what he was saying as he was yelling at people, yelling through the applause and mumbling through his words. Some of the things that we did hear didn't make any sense. Joe Biden claimed to care about the border and talked about fentanyl deaths, which is the #1 cause of young people ages 18 to 45, but yet has no plan to secure the border. And frankly, we all know he doesn't care about the border because Joe wants the border wide open. That's the whole problem with Joe. We also heard him talk about McDonald's non-compete fees. Well, I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I don't hear anybody at home worrying about these terrible fights between different fast food companies. Joe Biden did talk a lot about communism, though, and controlling private companies, and I think that's something that should concern every single American and every single.
Well, he talked about communism, did he? Advocated for communism. What the hell do you think that the Republicans were advocating for when they were booing him for suggesting that someone might want to suggest, cutting back or paring back or possibly sunsetting even Medicare? We're going to get into the nitty-gritty details of this, but these Republicans disgust me.
Single business owner.
Because here's the thing, you know that the Democrats are going to screw you. You know that they're going to stab you in the front. The Republicans stab you in the back, right? At least I can respect that the Democrats are going to stand, and try and cut your throat in front of you, whereas the Republicans pretend to be your friend and then they stick the knife in between your ribs.
I will tell you one thing Joe Biden did lie about. He didn't know what he was talking about a lot of the time, but he did frankly lie, talking about Republicans and Social Security and Medicare. We have not talked about cutting Social Security and Medicare. Joe Biden has been claiming that we're going to cut Social Security and Medicare, but we're not. So we called him out on the House floor. I called him a liar because that's what Joe Biden is. Either he doesn't know what he's talking about or he's just flat out lying.
You're all lying. You're all liars. Don't trust any of them. Maybe Thomas Massey. That's about it. Yeah. Okay. So the grotesque bipartisan moment during Joe Biden's State of the Union address. Here's a boo for you. Boo to you. Boo to you, all of you Republicans, you turncoats and you traitors, you non-believers in liberty, you oath takers and oath breakers. I mean, there was a lot to dislike last night in President Joe Biden's State of the Union speech, but when he said some Republicans want Medicare and Social Security to sunset, of course, he got a bunch of loud boos. People like Speaker Kevin McCarthy have said, oh, they don't want to touch the programs, right? But the sliver of support for Biden's statement, where did this come from, right? Where did he get this? It comes from a bullet point that was put out from an agenda that Senator Rick Scott, who's actually got some balls, put out last year that said this: all federal legislation sunsets in 5 years. If a law is worth keeping, Congress can pass it again. Senator Rick Scott, beautiful. I love it. All federal laws sunset in 5 years. If a law is worth keeping, pass it again. Give him another. There's some applause. How about that? That's where it's at. Now, that's a sweeping statement right there, and it doesn't specifically mention Social Security and Medicare. And he's right, and Joe Biden is right, that it has not received support from amongst most Republicans. And he said, Biden says, as we all apparently agree, Social Security and Medicare is off the books right now. They're not going to be cut, right? Good. We've got unanimity. Yes, they do. There is a bipartisan consensus to screw the American taxpayer, to destroy the wealth of future generations, and to do so on the altar of the elderly in this society. And here's the thing. You think, oh, well, it's something that we've all paid into as if your money. No, you will collect, even if you go on Medicare, you will collect more money than you paid in. All right. So that's not your money. Okay. Part of it is your money. right? Part of it is what you paid in, but not all of it, right? The vast majority of what will be collected from Medicare will be more than what people paid in. And for a lot of people who go into these Medicare programs, they don't pay anywhere near the amount that they collect in Medicare benefits, right? So Biden goes on. So tonight we all agree, let's stand up for seniors, stand up and show them we will not cut Social Security. We will not cut Medicare. Those benefits belong to the American people. They earned it. No, you didn't. You didn't earn money that you're spending because these programs are spending more money than they're taking in. And that's the reality. Can I get an amen? Can I get an applause? AP. Right? So, the flip side of sanctimoniously refusing to touch Medicare and Social Security in the name of protecting seniors is that the failure to take action now is punishing working age Americans. If after this show is done this morning, you're on your way to work, you are getting punished in order to pay out senior citizens who are taking way more in benefits than they ever paid into this system, who were able to purchase houses at a far lower cost than you were, to take out mortgages, to even if the mortgage interest rates were higher than the interest rates that some people are paying now, for example, even if they took out those higher amounts of mortgages, the total amount of money that they pay because of the inflationary effect is still lower. And they had a stronger economy, right? And they didn't have to have two people in their household working, right? You could afford two cars and you could take care of a family on far more than what people who are working age, millennials, Gen Xers, and younger generations, we have to work 2-3 times as hard as the boomers do, who are collecting these Medicare programs and that are taking way more out of these programs than they ever paid into these programs. So so this whole sanctimonious, we're not going to touch Medicare and Social Security, stuff like that. Listen, I'm not trying to breed intergenerational hostility here, but that is the flat fact of reality. There's a reason why the economy of Japan is being destroyed. It's because their senior citizens their population, their senior citizens far outweigh the young people that exist in their country, and they are not birthing at a replacement rate. The United States is now on that track. We are not birthing at a replacement rate in this country. And with people like Marjorie Taylor Greene sanctimoniously whining and crying about immigration in this country, we can't even replace the people that we have in order to get enough workers to be able to fulfill the needs of a growing American economy, to expand the GDP, to be able to pay into those programs. We need immigrants, you retards. We need immigrants to come into the United States so that we can actually pay those seniors. And what I think is hilarious is that you get these boomers who are so anti-immigration, but they want their Medicare. Well, who's going to pay for it, you morons? Who's going to pay for it? You idiots, you assholes, you destroyers of the American dream, you thieves, you scoundrels, you scalawags. I'm sick and tired of the intergenerational theft that is occurring from the ignoramuses of people who never sat down and took one word out of a Thomas Sowell textbook and said to themselves, I'm going to learn me some basic economics. No, the intergenerational greed that is happening is not on behalf of lazy or entitled millennials or stupid Zoomers and their haircuts and they're bussing on whatever stuff like that. We are working to pay for you so that you can get your Medicare for a program that you only paid a fraction into, of which we will probably not collect, of which we will not be able to take out of at all. So enjoy it, enjoy your vacations, enjoy your second homes, while the rest of us, if we're lucky, are able to even buy a first home, which most of us will not be able to do. Applause, cheer. This is the sound of which liberty dies. Thunderous applause. I'm going to go to a commercial break. When we get back, we'll look at pictures of that Chinese spy balloon. We'll be back with more on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today. Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Peterson stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apeforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apeforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit aporlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America Show at wakeupamericashow.com. We're joined in studio right now, a little bit early, but we're glad to have him here. State Senator Mike Moon. Good morning, Mike. Nice to see you.
Good morning, Austin. Good to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you on the Wake Up America Show today. State Senator Mike Moon is famous, and I've talked about him a lot. Famous for many reasons, but one of my favorite ones was for showing up on the Missouri State Senate floor wearing overalls. Is that correct?
That was correct.
You got a lot of press out of that one last year.
I did, and yeah, it was kind of funny. It did go quite a ways away from Missouri, and it wasn't really all it was cracked up to be. It was blown up considerably more than it should have been.
Well, I thought it was funny because you just really angered a lot of establishment types here in Missouri, and it was entertaining for me.
You know, overalls, it's kind of a picture of a working person, you know, and where I come from, a lot of farmers, not everyone wears overalls, but a lot of them do.
Well, you are a farmer after all, Mike. So,
I am.
Well, we're glad to have you here on the Wake Up
Thank
America show. And I'm looking forward to talking to you about what they're already calling Missouri's Don't Say Gay bill. The Riverfront Times, which is the leftist rag out of St. Louis, has already got you in the targeted in their sights. And we're going to get to that in just a moment. So you don't want to stick around for that. But I wanted to get your take. I know you didn't see the whole State of the Union, but I played that clip for you of, I almost called him Senator Joe Biden. Wish he was still a senator rather than president. But President Joe Biden in the State of the Union address last night says that that Republicans want to sunset Medicare and Social Security, which is actually, not true. Most of them didn't. And Republicans were up in arms. I mean, they were screaming, they were booing him, not because they were like, no, we believe in freedom. They were like, no, we agree with you. We agree with you. We want to keep Social Security and Medicaid. We're not going to cut into those benefits. What's your take on that, Mike?
You know, I'm kind of disgruntled with regard to the whole Medicaid scheme, and Social Security especially. Let me talk about Social Security. I believe that if we were allowed the opportunity to take that, whether it's 7.5% or the 15% invested ourselves, would have way more money than the government benevolently tries to give us back at our retirement age. Now, I think we have to be honest with ourselves because I think that the government is robbing from that fund and using it for other things. How much money is there today? I don't know. But there are reports that the last year I saw was about 2034, so it's right around the corner that it could be bankrupt. But well, it's probably bankrupt anyway because we're 30 plus trillion dollars in debt and they're printing money that has no value. So I think of the German franc when someone went to buy a loaf of bread with a wheelbarrow.
Mhm.
They go into the shop to get the bread and they come back and the wheelbarrow's gone.
And then what happened, of
The
course,
money,
is it led to the rise of
yeah.
fascism because people demanded a strong man to sort out the economic chaos that they had, and it led to the rise of the mustache man that would get me demonetized on YouTube if I say his name. Not that mustache man. We like this mustache man. If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show, I'm Austin Peterson, and I am speaking to Missouri State Senator Mike Boone. I brought him on here today because I wanted to talk to him about a bill that's already starting to get some controversy. Mike, why do you want to stop the teachers from saying gay? What is this new piece of legislation
Now,
you're proposing?
Austin, come on. You, I was hoping you would say, "Tell me about the Don't Say Gay bill," and I was saying, "What bill's that?" Because there is no such thing.
There is no such thing. All right. So what is your legislation you're proposing, Mike?
Well, it's Senate Bill 134, and it's actually a protection for kids where, people say, come on, Mike, kids come to school, they've got some problems, sometimes emotional problems. They don't have the care oftentimes that they need at home, the emotional support. So teachers and counselors need to talk to them. Okay, I get that. But there are some extremely charged issues that we're facing today that often kids are looking for help and they may not be given the type of help they actually need from school officials and sends them down the wrong path. And there is a case that's ongoing now in my district where a student was given some advice and it led them to the brink of wanting to kill themselves.
Hmm.
So that's about all I can say about that. I don't know exactly how it's going to turn out. But what I'm trying to do is just to get a situation where if kids need help, guide them to the right person to provide that help. Is a coach the one? Maybe. But we're specifying that they need to be a licensed professional to do that. Now, let's don't get into all the licensing stuff because I'm not a big fan of licensure and regulations and things
Obviously,
like
right.
that. But there are people trained in how to counsel people.
Mental health.
Yeah, and I'm not bashing anyone.
Mhm.
You can live the way you want to live, but when we're talking about vulnerable children, we need to protect them, and that's what I'm trying to do.
So, I mean, Florida's bill, from what I understand, all it did was, the bill would prevent teachers or school nurses from talking to what kindergarten 5
Mhm.
6 year olds
Mhm.
from teachers from talking to them about gender issues,
Yeah,
sexuality, transgender issues.
yeah,
It would prevent them from bringing drag queens into their classrooms at 5 years old,
yeah.
6 years old, and things like that. Is this pretty similar, or I mean, is yours just focused really on who's allowed to talk to them about it?
It's really the who's allowed.
Hmm.
Yeah, it doesn't go into bringing others into the classroom or anything like that. But it's just where when a kid comes to the school, and if it's a gender related question, they can receive that question, but then counsel the kid. You know what? I'm going to try to get the answer for you,
Hmm.
and then they can go from there. It's not to say, oh, you can't talk to me about that.
Right. Oh, so you think a math teacher should be focused on teaching mathematics to their student instead of sit around talking about, adult toys?
I think that's probably what they were trained to do, and
Oh,
that's what we promote
okay.
them to do.
That's
Yeah.
fascinating, Mike. That's amazing. Well, congratulations, or for ensuring that our public educational system doesn't necessarily continue swirling down the drain. Although I know many people who are watching, fans of this show, would probably rather hasten its demise rather than continue it. But we have to deal with the situation as it is,
Hmm.
right? These public schools aren't going away overnight, and I get into arguments quite frequently with some of my friends who agree with me about the state of public education, but they don't think that we ought to be doing things. They think that sometimes things like banning CRT in schools crosses into like not book burning territory, but book banning territory and things like that. And I don't really see that at all because the reality is it is on the field, Mike, that if we don't prevent our children from being aggressed upon, they will be aggressed upon. Predators will approach them and go after them. And if we do not prevent the communists from teaching Das Kapital to 7 and 8 and 9 and 10-year-olds, then they will do that and they will indoctrinate our children. And we shouldn't have a public education system that teaches young people to hate our country, to hate themselves for their color, for their skin, for their ethnic, whatever ethnic stereotype it is at the time. Because the reality is that while we may not agree with the public education system as it stands, Mike, if we don't at least try and make some reforms to it, the left certainly will.
You're speaking my language. And there are a lot of fronts that need to be worked on. And I don't have all the answers, but that's what we're here to do, to talk about it and find out people who do have some ideas that potentially could work and make it all better.
One of the important points that Camelia on the live stream pointed out, she says, not even the professionals, unless they have parental permission. That the parental permission thing, I think, is important.
Yes, yeah, parents need to be involved, and sadly, oftentimes they're not. Maybe this would be a way to get them involved, but either way, they need to be directing their kids' education, and this is just an integral part of that.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, I'm Austin Peterson, and you are listening to State Senator Mike Moon of Missouri, who's joining us in studio live right now. We're talking to him about a bill that he has proposed. And what's the SB number here?
134.
SB 134, which is legislation that would ensure that young people who are confused about their gender identity or who want to have discussions about sexuality would be able to do so, provided the person that they refer to as a licensed mental health professional, and that, of course, that the parents are involved, which seems to me to be an absolutely reasonable proposal. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Send us a text, 573-319-1586. If you have a question for State Senator Mike Moon, you can send it in on that text line. Again, that number is 573-319-1586. Alternatively, if you'd like to support the show, you can send it as a super chat over on YouTube at youtube.com/AP for Liberty. And all of our super chats this week go to help poor little Calvin, whose little back legs are paralyzed this week. And we're going to be getting him some physical therapy, and hopefully he might be on the road to recovery. We will soon find out with more veterinarian checks. I know you all are big fans of Calvin. Calvin's my dog, just so you know. State Senator Mike Moon, who's joining us in studio right now, has a lot of opinions on things, and I'm sure that there's a lot of other issues, not just yours, which is making headlines, Mike. What else is the Missouri State Senate looking at tackling this year of import?
Well, along the same lines is an act we call the SAFE Act, Save Adolescents from Experimentation. It's been sitting in committee for about 5 weeks. We have finally got an assurance that next Tuesday at 10 o'clock, the Emerging Issues Committee will hear the SAFE Act. And what it essentially does is says that if you're a minor child, you cannot be treated with hormones therapy or mutilation therapy, that is cutting off perfectly functioning body parts and replaced with body parts that don't work until you're of the age of majority. And this is a protection bill too. Think of Chloe Cole. Many have heard of her from California. At age 12, Chloe went to her parents and told them that she really didn't feel comfortable as a girl. They didn't know what to do, so they wisely sought some counsel. Unfortunately, they went to the medical community who said, well, you can't quash her ideas. You've got to let her continue working that through. So at age 13, they started hormone therapy, which some of these drugs, within 2 to 3 months of treatment, will cause sterilization or castration if you're a male. Mm-hmm. Chemical castration. And so at age 15, they removed her breast. At age 16, she had a thought, what have I done? And it was just the fact that she realized that she had done something extremely bad, and now she can't
go back. You can't undo these kinds of things. Permanent damage.
Yeah, she realized that she may never be able to have a baby of her own, and if she does, she won't be able to breastfeed.
That's terrible.
And so Chloe is just one of the premier examples that kids really aren't able to make those decisions at that age. So they may not be able to at 18 either. Experts say that our brains don't fully develop, as don't our bodies, till 20s or mid-20s. And so we should just let them take some time to grow, be a kid. And then at age 18, if they want to do this, let them do it.
I'm with you on that. I think 18 is really the age, because it doesn't make sense to me to say one age, for this, one age for that, one age for that. It's like just decide when somebody's an adult and
Yeah.
then, stick to that, right?
Here's something else too, and we won't put this in the bill,
Mm.
but I think that if you're going to do something like that, you ought to be able to support it financially, because estimates are that just the chemical part, the hormone therapy, can run up to $700,000 for one person over their lifetime. And add to that the mutilation, where you're severing body parts and then doing some plastic surgery to add things, that can be in the millions.
Yeah.
And who can afford that?
Yeah. Well, they go on public assistance,
And that's the problem.
right?
Yeah, we shouldn't be paying for that.
Absolutely not. We shouldn't be paying for that. But let's go back to the Medicaid Medicare situation, Mike. I shouldn't be paying for that either,
Oh,
because
I know it.
people taking way more out of that
Yeah.
than they put into it, and then you create this generation of people who have irreversible damage. And
Mm-hmm.
then what do you think is going to happen one day when they go on Medicare and Medicaid? Their bills, of course, like you say, are going to be in the millions
Yes.
because of all the damage that's been done. And once you get into be an advanced
Mhm.
age, all of a sudden, well, now we're going to be paying those healthcare costs too.
Let me give a shout out to a guy named Scott Nugent. I believe he lives in Texas.
Hmm.
He has a website called Trey Voices.
Hmm.
He is hoping to come to testify. He's in his 50s, and about 20 years ago, I believe it was, he transitioned from female to male.
Hmm.
And he's telling us this is abuse to kids if we allow this to happen. And so I'm hopeful that he'll be a voice of reason,
Hmm.
so that those who are opposed to this will understand that we're not trying to quash anybody's liberty and freedom, but it's just wait a little bit
Yeah, it
and
makes
grow up.
perfect sense. Yeah, let's give Mike a round of applause here on this one for his clear-headedness. My brother, Justin Peterson, who is over on the live stream, and by the way, it's his birthday today. Let's give him a round of applause. Justin, happy birthday! You're old, big bro. You're old. Has a really good take on this. He says, my take is let a kid socially transition if they want, but no to surgery until they're adults. At least a social transition has the benefit of changing your mind.
Mhm.
Now, I hope that when I have kids that I don't have to deal with this, Mike, but the fact is that now I have to actually think about this kind of a thing as a possibility. That seems to me to be much more reasonable. Is, if kids have questions or having problems, my guess is that there's probably some social pressure that's involved in this.
Yeah.
Give them some time, right? If they want to, socially transition, that might be their thing, but wait until they're an adult before they could make that kind of a medical
Mhm.
decision. And I think that's reasonable. It's unfortunate that we have to deal with these kinds of questions now, and especially because it's such a tiny minority of people, Mike,
Absolutely.
and it's taking up such a massive amount of our
Yes.
time and resources,
Right.
which is, to me, is quite unfortunate.
Have you ever heard of transition closets? Some schools offer these, where they have dresses and
Oh,
male and female clothes.
no,
And so you
no.
go to school and you're hiding it from your mom and dad. You can get your chest bound if you're a female, which causes problems too. And you can also change your clothes to dress the way that you think you are. And that's a problem too. So this bill, while it doesn't actually specifically cover that, it would address it too, because they should be hands off on those,
Mm.
unless the parents are okay with it.
Andy Opperman texted in this morning at 573-319-1586. He says, does Senator Moon understand exactly how many health professionals are pushing this ideology to kids? Might be worse than the percentage of teachers. That is the thing that's the most surprising to me too, is,
Mhm.
you know, I guess one of the things that I've thought about recently that, generates outrage in me, but not in a lot of other people, is just how much quackery there is
Mhm.
in the mainstream health field. I'm not going to go out there and name certain, sciences that are included in the health field that I think are quackery. But I mean, after COVID-19, I'll tell you, I've lost a lot of trust in
Mhm.
health professionals, Mike. I don't
Mhm.
know about you.
Oh, absolutely, I have too.
Mhm.
And to your point about the health professionals, mental health professionals, we've had some come testify in opposition to some of the bills like these, and so you have to wonder exactly the kind of help they're going to get. But the parents' involvement, I think, is a crucial part, because then the parents can decide, okay, is this the way we need to go? And hopefully they will have reason and say, my kid really needs to just be a kid for a while. And I think uh, the prospect of social transitioning is good, because there's going to be a lot of things involved in that, a lot of conversations, hopefully the parents involved in it, and they can find the path that is right for the child.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, we're speaking to Missouri State Senator Mike Moon about his bill that would ensure that young people who are experiencing gender confusion in the state of Missouri at their public schools would be referred to a licensed mental health professional, and parents would be involved in these decisions rather than just having teachers giving the power to privately have discussions with young people about their sexuality. We did get a text message that honestly asked a pretty good question, Mike. I wonder what you think about this. They sent it into our text line at 573-319-1586. They said, in the event that the inmates are running the asylum and, quote, mental health professionals are ill themselves, how does this handle that situation? I'm guessing having the parents involved would be that check. Interested to hear your answer.
That's the only option to check on it at this point. If that problem would be to be exacerbated, well, something else probably needs to happen. But that's where it's so important, parents, that you be involved in your child's education. Know what they're teaching. Know the conversations they're having in the classrooms, especially, and be involved in the school board. Know who they are and hold them accountable for the curriculum.
See, what the problem is too is that a lot of this transitioning stuff is coming from the parents, Mike. It's coming
I
from,
know.
there was this case in Texas of a man who's lost access to his child because his mother is
Yes.
convinced that the child
Yeah.
is transgender, and so is running off to California, which is what they're calling it like a sanctuary state. I don't know if they have it, like the law has passed there, but it's supposed to be like a safe place. So she's like taking the child. Apparently, the child doesn't want to go to California. But I'm going to blow your mind with this next take, Mike, and I think you're probably not going to like this. Let's move over to the question of transgender in sports. When it comes to the question of, and I know you're not going to like this, a lot of people don't like this take. When it comes to the question of young people who are cutting themselves or surgery, I'm with you. Your bill when it comes to preventing, teachers from having these conversations with kids, I'm with you. I think that they should be allowed in women's sports. And I'll tell you why. Because, first of all, girls have always been allowed in boys' sports, right? And it's never been a question. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. And in the name of progressivism and the name of female empowerment, we allow it. We encourage it, right? If when a girl takes a boy's spot on a corporate board in the name of affirmative action in this country, we applaud it, right? It's girl boss. It's progressivism.
I don't
It's
necessarily
empowerment.
applaud it.
All right. Well, you may not, but for the most part, they do. And many conservative women, right? They empower themselves and they gather together and they have women's groups and all this kind of stuff. Doesn't exist for the men.
It's the best qualified candidate. I don't care. Affirmative action.
I'm with
to
you.
me is
I'm with you.
nuts.
I'm with you. But we protect women and girls in this society. Maybe women and girls don't necessarily need protecting from men in sports. Maybe women who are the ones advocating this gender ideology, because Mike, it's not men voting for this stuff. Okay. It's not men who are advocating for men in dresses to be able to play in rugby teams and to crush girls' sports and MMA. This gender ideology is progressive feminism, right? And so here's what I think is going to happen. I think we're going to start seeing boys playing against girls in sports, and more girls are going to cry. And what's going to happen is that good conservative men are going to stand up and say, we need to protect our women and girls and all this kind of stuff. And we need to, of course, sacrifice men on the altar of political correctness, right? But what's going to happen is that more and more leftist women are going to see their daughters being destroyed on the sports pitch, on the lacrosse team, in the MMA, and the wrestling, and all that kind of stuff. And they're going to realize, you know what? Maybe progressive, leftist, Marxist feminism wasn't really such a good idea. Maybe it wasn't actually a good idea for us to go out there and advocate this. What do you think of that spicy take there, Mike?
It is spicy for sure. and because I'm a man, because I'm a man, I shouldn't even be talking about it, right? And because I'm a man, I'm not going to be the lead on this Save Women's Sports bill.
You know where I'm coming though from? It's like, man, take a back seat, sit back. Like we're gonna take charge, girl boss. We're in charge here. We're gonna let the transgender men play in the sports league with women, and then all of a sudden, the women are like, oh no, we're losing our scholarships.
Yeah.
But men lose their scholarships to girls all the time because we're advancing girls at the expense of girls. That's why we have more women in college than we do men.
If you go back to Title IX, in many areas in the country, they didn't have women's opportunities to play competitive sport. And so that's what that was all about. Now, if a school didn't have a girls' sport, then they were offered the ability to play against the boys.
Right.
So, and that was probably true anyway if they would just allow them. It's really kind of funny today because back in 1972, a lot of these women now, 50 years old? And Now there's some of those are advocating for, as you said, for these men to play against girls. I don't think they're realizing, wait a minute, we're defeating what we fought for, what
Yes,
was fought for 50 years
exactly.
ago.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's what you're getting.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, I think, and your listeners know well, that typically males are bigger, stronger, faster, in many cases have greater oxygen capacity.
Sure.
And so,
The problem is that there's a double standard in society,
Mhm.
Mike. Women have broken out of their gender roles.
Mhm.
Women can be whatever they want to be,
Mhm.
right? But that's not the case for us,
Mhm.
right? We still have to conform to the gender roles that society has for us culturally. Men still are expected to provide, still expected to pay for the first date, still expected to be chivalrous, still expected to hold the door over, and to conform to the old gender roles that when men had those gender roles, women were staying at home in the
Mhm.
kitchen, cooking, and all this kind of stuff. Women are progressive feminism has given women not equal status to men. It's given women higher status than
Mhm.
men, and it's given them scholarships, and it's
Mhm.
given them. It's the majority of people that who are going to graduate with a university degree are females, right?
Mhm.
So we've given them absolutely every advantage, because every single time something needs to happen, something is a problem with girls, a woman cries, and then what do we do?
Mhm.
You know, we all stand up. Oh, let's save her. We got to go. We've got to rescue the princess and all this
Mhm.
kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But this is a scenario. The transgender in sports is a scenario where women have invited it in, like you
Mhm.
said, right? Progressive feminism has decided that we want to have transgender men playing in sports, and now many women are realizing, oh my God, I can't compete against these men. Oh my
Mhm.
God, I'm on a level. All of a sudden, when they're placed on a level playing field with a man, they realize that the playing field is not as level,
Yeah.
right? So
And I,
they want a special exception. They want the men to come in and save them. For the last generations, at least my entire life, Mike, you're a little older than me. When I was a young man, it was always sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice for the women. The conservative says sacrifice yourself and go and fight in war to protect the women.
Mhm.
The leftist progressive says sacrifice your job and your career so that the woman can have the career. At some point in time, you know, we have to sit back and let's say, ladies, you wanted them in there,
Mhm.
fight it out. Good luck. You know,
Yeah.
MMA, ding ding,
Yeah. And
take them on, beat them up.
it's sometimes I think there are some right-thinking women too who are there's no we don't want to be competed against someone who is
Some, but do you think it's most? Do you think most women are voting conservative,
I
Mike?
I don't know the answer to that.
You don't want to answer that. I don't
Well,
you want to answer to that.
well, I think that here's what probably is reality. I think the truth is that there's a small segment of society who are making the loudest noise and they're getting the attention. So that feminist group probably is the smaller group. But there are some lawsuits that have risen up against what's happening with this unfair competition. Hopefully that'll continue. I don't know if that'll be the answer because you've got the IOC and the NCAA setting their standards, and I understand they're going to change their current standard of having to take hormones for a year before you can compete against another woman or biological male to women
I
to
mean, I think
only
it's
being
ridiculous.
tested a few months.
It's ridiculous, Mike. It's
Yeah.
it's absolutely ludicrous. But the problem is that now you get of the few women who are right thinking on this one and who would agree with us that it's ridiculous and it shouldn't be happening. You know, they'll say, "Well, we need to get more male. We need to get more male athletes out there." I spoke to one the other day. She says, "We need to get more athletes speaking out and stuff like that." Like, do you realize what would happen to an athlete, a male athlete, especially if he was a white male athlete, and what would happen to his sponsorships if he dared speak out against gender ideology? So again, sacrifice yourself, men, for us. Sacrifice yourself. We need you to protect us. Oh, but we'll take your job too, by the way, and we'll go into the workplace and compete against you. Women have no problem competing against men in the workplace, but now that they have to compete against men on the
Mhm.
sports pitch and they might lose their scholarship, help! I'm just a girl.
Yeah.
Mike, there are no feminists in house fires. You ever heard that? You ever heard that
Yeah.
saying?
And the comparison you talk about is kind of tantamount to being a white male legislator
Yeah, I'm
in the
sure.
Missouri
Yeah.
General Assembly.
Yeah, yeah. But you kind of see where I'm going with
Oh,
this.
yeah, I
It
do.
sounds insidious, but the problem is that we have these gender double standards that exist
Yeah.
in society that haven't been addressed. Men are still chained to their gender roles.
Mhm.
Women have broken free of their gender roles, and we see the chaos of that women want men to conform to the old chivalrous gender roles, uh, but they don't want to conform to them themselves. Right?
Mhm.
I find that a tad bit of hypocrisy there.
Mhm.
Is that the smell of hypocrisy? Mike, I'm sorry to blow your mind with that weirdness. I know that's not the typical conservative
That
take,
was a good one.
right? If you really hate women, if you're really a misogynist, you know, it's not the misogynists who are trying to prevent transgender men from playing in women's sports. The misogynists are the ones who are saying, yes, and I want transgender men in sports, and I want you to kick their ass. That's the misogynist take on things. Senator Mike Moon, anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners before you let you go?
Well, just funny, you said misogynist. I need a good massage.
State Senator Mike Moon, you've got a great bill. What's the Senate bill number real quick?
134.
Senate Bill 134. We're definitely going to be supporting that as well. The SAFE Act here. State Senator Mike Moon is a good sport. He's definitely a true defender of liberty, one of the best that Missouri has to offer, and we always watch his career with great interest. We're glad to have you here, Mike. You have a wonderful day.
I'm grateful to you, Austin.
Yeah, best of luck to you this year in the state legislative session. We'll definitely have to have him back. What do you think of Mike Moon? Send us a text, 573-319-1586. Again, you can also send us a super chat. I know you're probably fired up. You don't like what I'm saying there, but you know it's true. If you think that that's spicy, wait until I defend Leonardo Dicaprio today for dating a 19-year-old. Oh, yeah. Mike Moon's not going to have to be there for that one. He doesn't have to suffer through that. We'll be back with more on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here, and we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. What did you think of that interview with State Senator Mike Moon? Good stuff, right? I always really love kind of blowing people's mind with like that gender discussion there on the whole, transgender men playing in women's sports, because it really sort of uncovers how many underlying assumptions we have in this society. But I think really if I was to distill the argument into something that would be the main point here, is the question of male sacrifice. I shared a story the other day from World War I. I wrote this on my website, The Libertarian Republic. You can search it up if you'd like to read it. About the time that feminists sent men off to die. And the suffragette movement of the early 1900s when World War I was going on, was at its peak, right? They were pushing for female suffrage. They wanted women to suffer. No, they wanted to offer women the right to vote, obviously. But when World War I broke out, the suffragette movement joined the pro-war movement, and they started what they called the Society of the White Feather. And it was a social movement that was meant to shame men into going to war. Essentially, the suffragettes, the feminists of the time, while advocating for the women's right to vote, would also turn around and give men, if they saw a man who was not in uniform, say in the United Kingdom, if they saw a British man who was not in uniform, they would give him a white feather. And the white feather was an example of cowardice, of shame, right? And essentially saying that you should be off at the front. You should be out there fighting for your country. You should be out there fighting for us, defending us, right? The feminist movement has always been about male sacrifice, sacrificing the lives of men in order to defend women. Now, at some point in time, this might have made sense. As a matter of fact, funny little story aside, G.K. Chesterton, who many libertarians really love, apparently was approached by a woman and given a white feather and saying, she chastised him and says, "Why aren't you at the front?" He says to her, "Ma'am, I am, if you'll look at me closely, you'll see that not only am I out at the front, I'm also out at the sides." Which is a pretty funny joke because G.K. Chesterton was quite a fat man. The thing about left philosophy, left ideology and right ideology is that it always demands male sacrifice. Always male sacrifice. The left wants to sacrifice men to destroy our jobs, destroy our careers, sacrifice men at women's expense, at minorities' expense, especially white males in the United States today. The left wants to sacrifice and burn men on the altar of political correctness, and the right wants to sacrifice men's physical bodies and flesh in the war machine. If there's one thing that the left and the right agree on, it's that men are disposable and can be dispensed with their not only can we be dispensed our careers, our personalities, our identities can be dispensed with at will by the left, but our physical flesh and blood. If you believe in the draft, for example, that's a perfect example of why, what my point, which is that men are seen as disposable. Not indispensable, but rather dispensable. I'm going to go get Judge Napolitano. What Judge thinks about that kind of stuff. He never likes to talk about those social issue kinds of things. He only likes to kind of stick to the law and foreign policy and all that kind of stuff. So I want to ask him what he would do if he were president and that Chinese spy balloon had crossed the United States. Would he have shot it down? Or would he just let it fly above us and said it hasn't violated our non-aggression principle? We'll see what he has to say when we get back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupamericashow.com.
Donald Trump and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Hello, my name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bush. This is my Didi's website, and I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bush is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bush is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun.
Hello, I'm George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides.
Didi made Frenchy bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this collar, for example. Didi really likes it. Didi said it's really handy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies are little, but if you look at us from below, you can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake, yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes, you like that?
Big brother, please focus.
Frenchy Bush. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchy Bush blog for more fun and cool stuff.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
Do you have any real-world experience?
it's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. All right, well, there's only one man who could possibly top all of my freedom rants, the man who I learned it all from. You may ask yourself, Austin, how did you learn all of that stuff about freedom and the Constitution, limited government liberty? Well, the amount that I know is but a fraction of the great big giant brained man, a freedom fighter, a modern Thomas Paine of our time, or maybe Patrick Henry. I don't know. Which founding father do you think he identifies with most? Let's ask the man. His name is Judge Andrew Napolitano, and he's joining us right now. Good morning, Judge.
Thank you, Austin, and thank you for your generous way over the top introduction.
There are very few people, Judge, that I can say that I admire and look up to and could call great inspirations, and of course you're one of them, Judge. So it's no small amount of praise for me. But
the process during which we explored each other's brains was a very happy 2-year one of daily interaction at Fox, in a different Fox, in a different era, but a happy time in both of our lives.
Can I ask you, Judge, because you always did sort of compare yourself in many ways to Thomas Paine, but I know that you're a deeply religious man, whereas Thomas Paine was vehemently anti-religion. Would you say, though, that, ideologically, despite his views on spirituality, that he is the founding father? I mean, I know he's sort of an unofficial founding father, right? He didn't sign the Declaration, but would you say that ideologically he is the founder that you would agree with the most?
Well, yes, but the guy I love the most.
Yes, he is.
I'm holding up a bust of Thomas Jefferson that sits behind me and watches me as I do my work. Also irreligious, although I don't know if you ever read the Thomas Jefferson Bible.
Oh, yes.
He took the New Testament and removed the parts he didn't like and retained the parts he did. The Catholic Church wouldn't go for this, but there's a lot of food for thought there.
I always said that if I did get elected, I thought that my small act of heresy would be to take my oath of office on Jefferson's Bible, knowing that truth, but that most Americans, having no clue what it would meant, would just assume, oh, well, it was just a Bible.
Right. You're right. Most Americans would not know. But I love and admire the courage of Thomas Jefferson, Thomas Paine, Patrick Henry, because of their view of the primacy of the individual over the state, not because of their view of the relationship between the individual and God. And of course, as you know, I wrote about Thomas Paine and his famous one-liner, "These are the times that try men's souls," and this week, and compared it in my column to the very trying times we're experiencing today, which were manifest last night in Joe Biden's State of the Union address to one political party, call it the uniparty or call it the big government party. But there was one party there, and they all love to take our property and give it away in their names so they can get credit for being charitable with our money.
Judge, certainly I can no longer truly be that disgusted by Democrats simply because I have absolutely zero expectations. Now, there are times when Democrats manage to even go below those expectations, in which case I pay heed to them. However, when it comes to Republicans, you listed a few of them before who actually do follow their oath of office, but most of them last night were booing President Biden. They were booing him not because he was accusing them of believing in big government. He was accusing them of believing in too much liberty. They were booing him last night because they didn't want the American people to think that they might actually believe in limited government, Judge. They were booing him because they wanted the American people to know that the Republicans stand firmly arm in arm with Joe Biden. It was a disgusting display. Judge, we seem to have lost your audio there. Can you try, did you hit a button on your computer screen? If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson, I'm speaking to Judge Andrew Napolitano. He's the host of the Judging Freedom podcast. You can listen to the judge's podcast on any of your mobile devices. His Judging Freedom podcast is very popular. You can also watch him here on YouTube, Judging Freedom with Judge Andrew Napolitano. You can check that out. It's a great download and frequently gets quite hundreds of thousands of views. Hoping that the judge's technical issues will be corrected while we're discussing here. But until then, of course, I am an excellent tap dancer. I took 2 years of jazz, ballet, and tap while I was in college, which is perfect for situations like these when a guest, for example, loses their connection and their ability to contact with us. For example, like his microphone going out right now, which means that unfortunately we can't hear him, but the possibility remains that he might still come back. So I'm going to, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and put us on standby for just a brief moment, reconnect with the judge, and we'll see if we can solve this problem. So give me about a minute and a half. Don't leave. You can laugh at me if you want, point and laugh, but I will be back in just a moment to get the judge all squared away. And we're back. All righty. Thanks so much for sticking around with us. We do have technical issues from time to time, but that's what does not kill us, makes us stronger. Judge Napolitano still sticking around with us. Judge, let's just continue where we left off. Last night's disgusting display. Republicans who were booing Joe Biden because they didn't want him to think that they weren't with him. The Republicans certainly are no friends of freedom, are they?
No, the Republicans in the Congress, with the exception of a half dozen or so, whose names I articulated a few minutes ago, are part of the big government party that believes it can right any wrong and regulate any behavior and tax any event and spend any sum and intrude onto any process or property and authorize without declaring any war that it wants just to stay in office. And that's exactly what they do. We have not had a two-party system in this country since before FDR. We have one big government party with a Democratic wing that likes war and taxes and regulation, and a Republican wing that likes war and deficits and regulation. And they both just want to stay in power. Charity is being generous from the heart. It's impossible to be charitable with someone else's money. They take our money and they give it away. And they write laws so that they always have to give it away. And if there's going to be any clawback in the money they give it away, they blame it on the laws that a previous generation has written. There's no authority whatsoever in the Constitution for Medicare and Social Security at the federal level. There's no authority in the Constitution whatsoever for the feds to take money from person A and give it to person B. On the contrary, the Constitution expressly says the government cannot take your life, liberty, or property without due process, meaning a jury trial at which fault is proven, and it can't take your property except for public use and except by compensating you for its just value. The government doesn't care. We have proposed the Constitution for safekeeping in the hands of people who despise it.
Now, Judge, I remember watching Ronald Reagan's Time for Choosing speech, and despite its libertarian themes and message and quite uplifting and inspiring message, Reagan states explicitly, and this was in the 1960s, Reagan stated explicitly that Republicans believe in protecting and maintaining the New Deal. So I guess my question for you is the mark of a true conservative, or the difference between a Republican, per se, or someone who considers themselves broadly a member of the right wing, a true conservative is someone who is opposed to the New Deal? I mean, nonetheless, libertarians, of course, opposed to it. But I mean, would you say that that is really the mark of a true conservative, that they are opposed to FDR's plan, whereas Reagan and other modern Republicans now fully admire and accept FDR's schemes?
You know, I am reluctant to use the word conservative because I don't know what it means anymore. When I hear the word, I think fondly of Senator Barry Goldwater and that version of conservatism, which did oppose the New Deal, which did, and for those who still embrace it, I mean, I call myself a libertarian rather than a conservative, do believe that the Constitution means what it says. The federal government can't take property from A and give it to B because there's no express grant of authority under the Constitution to do it. The Federal Reserve is unconstitutional. Taking taxes is immoral. But in order to stay in power, liberals, Democrats, conservatives, Republicans, progressives, everybody but serious thinking libertarians are in favor of the New Deal, in favor of Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, because so many people in America are reliant on it for their subsistence that they're afraid they'll be voted out of office if they honor their oaths, which is to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. Barry Goldwater's The Conscience of a Conservative, with the exception of its views on the military, would today be called The Conscience of a Libertarian. But Goldwater himself will oppose the Civil Rights Act of '64 because Congress didn't have the authority to regulate private property, who opposed Medicare, Medicaid, Medicaid didn't exist, Medicare and Social Security because Congress didn't have the authority to it, was a principled conservative at his time, what we would call a libertarian today.
Judge, would it have been appropriate to pass the Civil Rights Act if it did not contain the Title II provision which impacted private property and simply removed those state laws which infringed on the individual rights of minorities in those states where the
Well,
governments were?
yes, absolutely, because all government has to be colorblind, and if it's not colorblind, it violates the natural law. The natural law teaches that we all have inherent rights, and those inherent rights are equal, and they are not tempered by the color of our skin. And the 14th Amendment, of course, about which there is still tremendous controversy over what it means and if it was even ever ratified, but it's been followed since 1868, expressly gives the Congress the authority to compel the states to engage in equal protection, which means that they have to be colorblind.
Amanda on the live stream has a very good point. There's a question between principle and what actually works in politics. She says that's why there aren't many libertarians in office. Our way of thinking doesn't gain you seats. If the right came out against these things, Medicare and Medicaid, Democrats would absolutely dominate our elections. Probably a good point. Of course, that's why the Republicans were so vehement, because they were more concerned about getting reelected than they were about protecting our rights. Judge, can I ask you a question about that Chinese spy balloon? If you were president of the United States, would you have used military force to prevent it from violating our airspace, or would you have engaged in a similar action to Joe Biden and have used the military to shoot it down?
But neither. I would have taken it down intact and reverse engineered it to see what was in there and what they know about us. I happen to think that the balloon was a subterfuge or a scam. A subterfuge either to draw the attention of the American public away from something, I don't know what, or a scam on the part of the administration in order to begin building the case of animosity against China to justify Joe Biden's preference. He's already stated this, Austin, his preference for war against China should they decide to use military force against Taiwan. The argument would be Taiwan makes too many of our computer chips and we can't afford to lose Taiwan, and China won't sell us the computer chips. That's hogwash. The real argument is the country's falling apart. The president is unpopular. And when all else fails, they take you to war. They're taking us to war in Ukraine over issues that have absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with American national security. So I agree with our friend and colleague, Paul Craig Roberts, that whose piece is out this morning, that this was a scam to begin to build up American animosity toward China.
At some point, Judge, confrontation with China appears to be inevitable. I mean, acts of animosity seem to be happening, escalating on both sides. I wonder, what would be the proper response, if it were truly an act, a spying act on us. Let's say, for example, that Joseph Watson is incorrect. If the Chinese were doing that in order to provoke us or were spying on our nuclear missile silos, I think that you are correct in that the right way to do it would have been to capture it and to bring it back and reverse engineer it. I was of the mind back when Osama bin Laden was assassinated that it would have been far better to capture him and to try him rather than to simply assassinate him, because I think that was
agreed.
The incorrect way to handle those things. It's always better to have more information than to just kill the target, which is why I think so many conspiracy theories frequently arise, because the government creates them with their mishandling of things like this, these international incidents. But
I'm smiling because one of the several times that I was asked to take a day off at Fox was when I referred to the murder of Osama bin Laden, which is true. They broke into his house and murdered him. One of the guys that claims he killed him actually fired a half dozen bullets into him after he was dead. And if you think his body is at the bottom of the ocean There's a bridge not far from here that goes between Manhattan and Brooklyn, and I can sell it to you.
Judge, the way our government works, I mean, our budgetary process, our foreign policy process, I mean, it is anathema to the Constitution and how it works. But for example,
Yes.
if you're going to issue a declaration of war, I mean, is it logical to make a declaration of war against a terrorist group? Because to fight against a terrorist group, and a declaration of war to me would be something that you do to another foreign government, right? A declaration of war would be something that you use if you're going to fight against, Germany or Japan or what have
Correct.
you. But an authorization of military force would seem to me more appropriate if you have to fight something like, for example, Somali terrorist pirates who are hijacking merchant shipping off the coast of the Horn of Africa. I'd prefer corporations provide their own security and machine guns, not Americans. But the mercantilist argument, the Alexander Hamilton argument, is that right is that corporations pay American taxes for American military defense. I mean, American citizens overseas deserve to be protected as well. So I mean, what is a proper authorization for the use of military force to defend, not American interests, perhaps economic interests, but American lives overseas?
Well, George Bush didn't succeed in bringing to justice anybody that perpetrated 9/11. All he succeeded in doing was spending $2 trillion and causing the deaths of 1 million people. I'm talking about the invasions of Iraq and Afghanistan. He knows exactly who financed it, and they're his friends in Saudi Arabia, and not a hair on the heads of any of them was touched. No one has been tried at Guantanamo Bay because of 9/11. There's been one trial because of 9/11, and that was the so-called 20th hijacker who pleaded guilty. And then in the penalty phase of his trial, because the government wanted the death penalty, the jury rejected the death penalty, and he was sentenced to life in prison. Zacharias Moussaoui. This is a guy who didn't harm a hair on the head of anyone. So Bush's so-called use of military force in order to bring about justice not only accomplished an injustice, it materially weakened the United States by adding $2 trillion to our debt. It materially generated animosity because of our rampant, reckless, violent, murderous behavior of killing innocents in the Middle East. It accomplished nothing. If he really wanted to bring to justice the people who caused 9/11, he could have sent teams to kidnap the Saudis who paid for it and kidnap the Saudis who arranged it and bring them to Lower Manhattan and put them on trial in a federal district court where they would have gotten a fair trial and a just punishment. That did not happen to one single person.
Judge, if I were to go, Missouri just legalized recreational cannabis last year and went into effect this last week. If I were to go into a shop and purchase a legal product that's perfectly legal here in the state of Missouri, and then if I were to go down the street to my friends at Trigger Firearms and Reloading and try and purchase a firearm, I would be given a federal form to fill out, which would require me to either lie on the form and commit a federal crime or state that I am a user of a lawful substance in my state, which would then, therefore, I would be denied my Second Amendment rights. A federal judge says that that's unconstitutional. Do you agree that it's unconstitutional? Should people be allowed to use drugs and own guns? And then do we expect that that would mean that there will have to be a change to that firearms law? Or what's the possibility of
Okay,
that?
so of course it's unconstitutional. All of the drug laws are unconstitutional because the parts of Roe v. Wade that have not been reversed say that you control your own body and you can decide what to put in your body. And that's a natural right, irrespective of Roe versus Wade and irrespective of the Congress's Victorian impulses when they wrote these laws. So, of course, the law that says you can't be a user or possessor of marijuana and the lawful possessor of a weapon at the same time are absurd. Now, the Bruin case, that's the right to keep and bear arms decision by Justice Thomas, a 6-3 opinion that came down just last June, says that the history and tradition of the use of firearms in this country is what must prevail today. History and tradition. Thomas Jefferson and the founders smoked hemp while they owned their firearms. And these clowns want to say you can't own a firearm while you have some marijuana on the front seat of your car next to you. Who the heck do they think they're kidding? They don't even know what the law in the Supreme Court has written.
Judge Andrew Napolitano, the host of the Judging Freedom podcast. Judge, I saw last night your conversation with Colonel Douglas McGregor, and boy, it was absolutely killer. Over 100,000 views this morning. A lot of people are tuning in to hear your points of view on your own Judging Freedom show. What have you got cooked up for us next on your own show?
Well, we have Scott Ritter coming on later this week. I can only get Colonel McGregor once a week, and I already pulled that trigger yesterday. But last week, I got pissed off at Joe Biden. I came right here at 6:00 at night and I looked in the camera and did a rant for 10 minutes. 414,000 views and 90,000 comments that were 99.99% over the top positive. So people like when you speak about human freedom. What is the most dangerous thing on the planet? The government. What causes wars and destroys innocent lives and takes away freedom? The government. People want to be reminded of that and told about the insidious ways in which it happens.
Judge Andrew Napolitano, I want to be you when I grow up. You are the host of the Judging Freedom podcast and a good friend and a freedom fighter.
I'll take your face. Father. I'll take your face and your youthfulness any day, Austin.
Judge, we appreciate you very much. We'll definitely be tuning in to see that interview with Scott Ritter. Thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for standing strong for freedom. We appreciate you.
All the best, my man.
Thank you very much. That's Judge Andrew Napolitano, host of the Judging Freedom podcast. Make sure you download that on any of your mobile devices. Yes, the judge. Okay, so I was going to talk to the judge about this next topic, but I figured, he's a busy man. Maybe he probably doesn't want to get into a long, drawn-out discussion about Leonardo DiCaprio's new girlfriend. He's 48 years old. She's 19 years old. I wonder what the judge would have to say about that. Don't you? It's a shame. We missed out. You're just going to have to get my take on it when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Good morning to the Cantina crew. This is Elon Musk, the CEO of Twitter. And I just want to say thank you for watching the Wake Up America show. I've decided that Austin Peterson will be the new CEO of Twitter.com, effective immediately. First thing to do, though, is I've got to go and blast off into space.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that at the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
Would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors.
Good morning to the Cantina crew. This is Elon Musk, the CEO of Twitter. And I just want to say thank you for watching the Wake Up America show.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Hello, my name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bullshit. This is my Didi's website. Now I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bullshit is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bullshit is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun.
Hello, I'm George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides.
Didi made Frenchy Bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this collar, for example. Didi really likes it. Didi said it's really handy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies are little, but if you look at us from below, you can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake. Yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes. You like that?
Big brother, please focus.
Frenchy Bullshit. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchy Bullshit blog for more fun and cool stuff.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Did you like the judge's interview? Yeah, I love seeing the feedback over there. As a matter of fact, it looks like we got some super chats as well. Thank you to Elizabeth Fanning Press and Matt Unruh. You guys rock. All your donations this week go to help support physical therapy for the restoration of my little paralyzed boy, poor Calvin, that you just saw in the commercial. His little back legs are paralyzed. Pretty common affliction that some dogs are afflicted with. His little spine, unfortunately, gets pinched and he's lost control of his back legs. So just want to say thank you to all of our supporters this week. Usually I like to take the super chats and that money and usually funnel it back into the program, but this week I'm going to be a little bit selfish for myself, if you don't mind, and use some of that money for the support of getting Calvin a little bit of physical therapy. They say that there is a chance that he might be able to walk again. It's a small chance through physical therapy and others. They didn't recommend surgery for him. They don't think that that would really change anything. But they say that with enough time, with enough steroids and physical therapy, he might regain the use perhaps of one of his back legs, so he might be a little bit limpy. One of my friends did say that they would help with a wheelchair, a little stroller kind of deal for his back legs and stuff like that if he needs it. Steffi says he's in a good mood. Yeah, you know, when you're on heavy steroids, you'd be in a good mood, but let's give a little round of applause for Calvin. I hope he gets better. Yeah, we crate him. Elizabeth's asking over there, is he crated? Crate him nonstop for a few days. That's what we've been doing, keeping him immobilized. Boy, it's hard though sometimes, just because when you do let him out, he can just drag himself. When Stephanie got home the other day, she'd been gone for a few days. I had taken him outside to pee, and I like set him down. And when he saw Stephanie and he hadn't seen her for a few days, I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen these zombie movies where they hire an actor that has no legs to look like a zombie and like crawl on their arms. And that's kind of what he looked like. He was like a little zombie dog. He was like, I've never seen a dog on two legs move that fast. He was like across the yard to get to his mommy. It was like funny and sad at the same time. I don't know. Anyways, I know Chris Morrill, you are teasing me. He says Yingling has been showing up on draft in several Cape establishments. Thank God. I will say, though, that I did have your stag beer, a couple stag beers, and I'm pretty sure you owe me a case of stag beer at this point, Chris, although I'm fairly certain that your monthly support levels are more than sufficient to make up for what you owe me in beer. But yeah, I do need to get myself some delicious Yingling beer. All right, and drink it with, well, someone who's not 19 years old. Leonardo DiCaprio making headlines.
And I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson
Sorry, I didn't mean to go to commercial break there like that. I meant to go to Twitter weirdness. We've had all kinds of technical glitches this morning. Twitter weirdness, Titanic star Leonardo DiCaprio is in trouble for allegedly dating a 19-year-old girl. People are roasting him on Twitter, saying she should at least be as old as the movie Titanic, which of course the movie Titanic came out more than 19 years ago. So yeah, Leonardo DiCaprio, known for dating young women, likes to keep them under 25 years old, which is quite nice. But it looks like he is sunk to new depths, reports the Daily Mail. He's rumored to be dating model Eden Polani. Take a look at Eden Polani there. I'll tell you, it's like, well, what did Joe Biden say about a 19-year-old? Looking at her, she's looking like she's 19 years old, looking like a little lady with her legs crossed. Wait a minute, what did you say there? That is Joe Biden. She's looking like she's 19 years old, like a little lady there with her legs crossed. Joe Biden. See, Joe Biden knows a nice, beautiful young lady when he sees one. He was, so he, Leonardo DiCaprio is rumored to be dating this 19-year-old model. He's supposed to have some other girlfriend, whatever. But right, Twitter's gone wild with the news because she's so young that her high school education was interrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Somebody said you can't hear Joe. Okay, hold on. Let me turn Joe up. How's this? Let me try it again. How about this? Take a listen. No? Oh, you know why? Because I haven't introduced the stream now. Here we go. Hold on. Here's Joe Biden again.
And look at her. She looks like she's 19 years old, sitting there with her, like a little lady with her legs crossed.
Is she looking like a little 19-year-old lady? She's looking at her with her legs crossed. There you go. There's your replay. Hold on.
And look at her. She looks like she's 19 years old, sitting there with her, like a little lady with her legs crossed.
She's looking like she's like 19 years old, little lady with her legs crossed. Did you hear it that time? Okay, there you go. I'm sure that you did. So yeah, Leonardo DiCaprio getting roasted. Her high school education was interrupted by COVID-19. I love the jokes. They are funny. One person observed Kate Winslet was 22 when she was nominated for an Oscar for Titanic, which is 3 years old than Leonardo DiCaprio's current girlfriend. Yes. Very funny, very funny. I think that's a good joke. What else? Continue. Leonardo DiCaprio's new girlfriend wasn't even born when Titanic was released, one Twitter user wrote. I already made that joke. Someone please explain to me what a man nearing 50 has in common with checks notes 19-year-old.
And look at her. She looks like she's 19 years old, sitting there with her, like a little lady with her legs crossed.
Look like she's 19 years old, sitting there like a little lady with her goes. DiCaprio's girlfriend is so young, she probably studied the Romeo and Juliet film he starred in when she was at school. That's funny. Somebody needs to stop Leonardo DiCaprio. It was funny 10 girlfriends ago. Leonardo DiCaprio is only worried about climate change because he wants to leave a better world for his girlfriends. Very good, very good. Saw a TikTok pointing out that Leo DiCaprio's new girlfriend is so young, her high school experience was interrupted by COVID-19. Already made that joke. Somebody needs to stop him. DiCaprio's girlfriend so young, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so anyways, here's what I have to say about this. And this is another one of those hot takes that nobody's going to like. Are you an adult when you're 18 or not? Stop infantilizing women. Okay. The problem is again, is that this is one of those situations where it approaches a glaring double standard. People try and act as if older men are taking advantage of younger women. But let me ask you a question. Do you think that younger women might be taking advantage of older men? I mean, who's really the prize in this situation? You're 19 years old, you have no experience, you're not famous, you're not a star, you've done absolutely nothing, you've won 0 Oscars. All you are is just a beautiful 19-year-old. Really, who is taking advantage of who here? If anything, the 19-year-olds are taking advantage of the 48-year-old men. He likes young flesh. She likes rich older men who have star power and celebrity. It's a win-win for both of them. The reality is that the people who are against this are women who have hit the wall, who are past their prime, who are sick of the competition, many of them who are maybe childless, perhaps after having reached their prime, they're divorced or they've got 2 kids from a previous marriage and they'd like to be able to go out and date again, and they find that the men that are their age don't want to date them because they've become old and embittered and because they've got baggage. And men don't want that. The reality is that once a woman has passed her 30s, very rarely are an older man going to be interested in it, because especially modern women today bring so many psychological issues and problems to the table. Not always. It's not always the case. Some women are perfectly fine, and dating them in their 30s is not an issue because they haven't, how do I say this without getting demonetized? They haven't embittered themselves, perhaps. We'll say they haven't their body counts are low, if you will. I'll just say the fact is that the reality is that when an older woman dates a younger man, she's a cougar. When an older man dates a younger woman, he's considered to be predatorial. My friend Kristen Thomas, who was supposed to be on the program today, she was supposed to come in here today. She's very busy. She's a sex coach and a life therapist. She says, this is what she texted me last night. She says, predatorial. She goes, blah, blah, blah. As she says, it's definitely starting to dip into predator vibes. Like, what 19-year-old knows what the F they are doing in life, and someone of this age just wants someone young and impressionable. See, here's the problem, is that, where is the whole empowered girl boss attitude? When you're a perfectly formed adult human female, you're 18 years old, whatever happened to female empowerment and girl boss, right? Kristen would probably be here to say, oh, well, she should be the CEO of a company, right? These billionaires shouldn't be on it. She should be a corporate board. She should be at the head of a company at 18, 19 years old. You want to have it both ways. They want to have their cake and eat it too. Now, I know what you're saying. Like, what's the point of having a cake if you can't eat it? But quite frankly, the reality is that why can't you say that she's a predator? Why aren't the 19-year-old girls considered to be predatorial for going after celebrity older men and going after them for obviously their fame or their status or their money, right? Are there girls who are 19 years old who just like to date older men because they like distinguished men who have their life together, who know what's going on in the world, who aren't playing games like 20-year-old boys are? Sure, absolutely there are. But to pretend as if these young girls have no agency is to rob them of the female empowerment that so many progressive feminists have asked for, that have demanded for women. Are you an adult female or not? If you're not an adult female and you're not empowered to make your own decisions, then you should, and you're a child and you should be treated like a child. Okay. But if you want to be an adult and you want to be able to make adult decisions, you should be able to experience the repercussions of those decisions that are both good and bad. What do you think? Aren't cougars predatory? Asked Tolly Owens. I think that's a great question. Very funny. You can text the show 573-319-1586. Amanda over in the live stream, she's apparently got a little scandalous story too, because she's saying that apparently the people don't want people want to know how old her husband was when she was 19 years old. You better dish, Amanda. We want to know how old your husband was when you married him at 19 years old. I'd like to know. Boy, this is some juicy stuff.
And look at her. She looks like she's 19 years old, sitting there with her, like a little lady in a race car.
That's too loud, by the way. The Joe Biden thing. Do I need to turn it down a little bit? How's that?
And look at her. She looks like she's 19 years old, sitting there with her, like a little lady in a race car.
Flight the Caricature over there says, I'm surprised he's dating someone that old.
No, God! No, God, please, no!
18 is old enough. Okay, that's fine. Perfectly fine. Let's not go into that negative territory there. I know. Once I get under 18, then it's time to panic. Yeah, 60. He was 35 and you were 19. Oh, scandalous, Amanda. See, I think it's perfectly fine. I think it's good and fine and okay. I think if an older cougar lady wants to have a 19-year-old boyfriend, I think that's good and that's fine. You know, it's perfectly fine. But if an older man wants to have that kind of a relationship with a younger woman, that's his business as well. What do you think about that? You can, again, send us a text, 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. All right. Well, Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce, two brothers who are playing in the Super Bowl against one another. These parents raised two kids playing in the Super Bowl. Here's what they fed them. Yeah, a massive amount of food, burgers, pizza, all this kind of stuff. If you're going to have kids, they're going to eat a lot. But imagine having two superstar sports athletes. Imagine how much these two young men ate. Let's talk about that. I think that's interesting when we get back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupamericashow.com.
Donald Trump and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Hello, my name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bullshit. This is my Didi's website, and I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bullshit is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bullshit is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun.
Hello, I'm George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides.
Didi made Frenchy Bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this collar, for example. Didi really likes it. Didi said it's really handy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies are little, but if you look at us from below, you can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake, yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes, you like that?
Big brother, please focus.
Frenchy Bullshit. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchy Bullshit blog for more fun and cool stuff.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every $1 we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
You have any real-world experience?
it's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect, And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. Austin Peterson here from the Wake Up America show. Almost forgot. How could I forget? To talk about our friends over at Lear Capital. Have you ever considered buying gold or silver? Well, let me tell you, AP for Liberty highly recommends my friends over at Lear Capital. Most of us have questions about buying gold and silver because we don't know much about it. And when you Google things nowadays, it's just really hard to get straight answers. Well, I'll tell you, you can get more good info for free by visiting my friends at Lear Capital at learaustin.com. That's LEARAUSTIN.com. Or maybe you're saying to yourself, you know, it might be a good idea to take a portion of my retirement and invest it into gold and silver, because if all you have are paper stocks, well, we've seen what Joe Biden can do to that. The last couple of years of the economy, it's been pretty rough. But gold and silver have withstood the test of time. Libertarians love gold and silver for a damn good reason. And my friends have some of the great prices, some of the best prices and best packages around. So I don't ask for a whole lot. I usually ask for about one thing a day, maybe two things. Today I'd like to ask you for one thing, and one thing alone, and that is to visit my website at learaustin.com and sign up for a free gold and silver package. Now here's the thing. A lot of influencers online will do things like, oh, you should buy this land deed to be a noble in Scotland, or buy naming a star in the galaxy and give it to as a gift to somebody else. Would you rather get a fake title from a Scottish, being called a Scottish lord as a gift? Or would you rather your significant other say, here's a gold bar, happy birthday? Like, how would you like that? Amanda, let me ask you something. Would you like your distinguished older gentleman husband to show up one day and open up a box and there's a chunk of gold sitting there? How would you like that? I think you would. Or would you like somebody else? Would you like to do that for somebody else? Well, you can find out more. Again, no obligation to buy. Just visit learaustin.com. That's LEARAUSTIN.com today. Sign up for a free information packet from my friends over at Lear Capital at learaustin.com. Okay, cool. All right, I see that I've chased off a lot of my friends over there on the stream. That's okay, it happens. The Wake Up America show will continue. Also, thank you so much to our super chatters earlier. I appreciate you for supporting the cause today. We're super grateful for all of our super chats that we get from our friends. Okay, we've still got a few more minutes to go. Yes, Amanda says, I'll take the gold. Rare Camellia says, please ask Jeremy Cady about Scottish titles. He and his wife are now Lord and Lady Cady. Yes, I know. A lot of people fell for that scheme. Amanda, you deserve to be showered in gold jewelry, girl. Careful how you word that, Stephanie. That could, depending on how you worded that could have gone very wrong indeed. Let's see. I didn't have time to talk about Travis Kelce and his brother. Travis Kelce is the Chiefs player, right? And his brother, don't even know his name. Jason Kelce and Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce are siblings and superstars, devouring chicken single-handedly. Anyways, they racked up enormous bills growing up. And, imagine feeding it's like feeding, have giant, cash cows that you have to feed. How much you have to feed these kids. I was going to get into the nitty-gritty details of the story, but I just don't have time, and I'm sorry about that. What happens usually is I get Judge Napolitano on the program, and he and I talk about absolutely everything. And then it just takes up like basically the entire time. Tomorrow we're gonna have Danielle. What is that noise? Can you hear that? In the background? Oh, sorry about that. All kinds of tech issues today. Brian Lewis, Amanda, Doug H, Steffi P. Who else? Rare Camelia's with us today. R Volt 24, Dustin, Mad Mom Anon, who's supporting. Speaking of gold and silver, she's supporting that gold bill here in the state of Missouri. She says, "Great wake up show coming up. Gotta go. Stay dangerous and free. All hell yeah." Chris Morrill, 6 months older than his wife. Wow, you really robbed the cradle there, didn't you? Robbie Thurman, Doug H. All of our friends over in the live stream. Super grateful for you. You know, I love this show. I love doing this every single day. I'm having an absolute blast, right? Not all of us are lucky enough, I realize, to love our jobs, but I'm just really super grateful. I know I say it, but I probably don't say it enough. How grateful I am to all of you supporting me in this cause to do this. I mean, it's kind of a weird thing, right? To be I hate to say the word influencer, online influencer, run like a show like this, a daily stream, but it's kind of amazing what we're doing here, right? We're doing an end run around the mainstream media. I mean, you could be watching Wake Up America right now. Not Wake Up America. Good Morning America. Now, you're not supposed to say the names of your competitors, but I mean, you could be watching the mainstream media right now. You could be watching a million other shows, but you're watching and supporting this one. And, you know, I don't come from a wealthy family. I'm not nobility. I'm not a former congressman. I don't have, like, you know, a network behind me or anything like that. I'm just, you know, one guy, one employee, a wife who supports me, and 2 dogs who one is partially paralyzed. So I ain't got a lot, but I do have you, and I'm grateful for that. I appreciate you very much. Of course, our sponsors, Lear Capital, as well, in conjunction with our fan base, really do make an awesome team, don't we? I mean, you are the show because you're supporting it by watching it, by liking, clicking, subscribe, hitting that bell notification icon, and of course, by supporting us with your financial contributions, which I, again, from the bottom of my heart, I'm super, super grateful. We can break the stranglehold the mainstream media has on the infotainment wars that are going on, and we will win in the end. We will grow, and we will build our own Liberty Network. It's coming, and it's happening right now, thanks to people like yourself. Again, thank you very much. Give yourself a round of applause. And we'll see you tomorrow on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupamericashow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today. Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Petersen stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apeforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apeforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit aporlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.